This is William Michael, the headmaster of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and in this video I'd like to provide parents with a simple guide through what is a pretty complicated subject, namely selecting courses in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. We're going to be taking a look at a page full of information that we've prepared on the Academy website. And if you look at the website, you'll see this link here, Selecting Courses. That link will bring you to this page. And this page really explains everything that you need to know about how to manage studies, how to select courses for all of your children when enrolling in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. As I said, this is a very complicated subject because what we're doing in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy is not simple. It's a very complicated mission that we're working to carry out. And if you as a parent can understand what we're doing and then just focus on the tasks at hand year by year, you can understand the mission, but focus on the present. And that I think is the best way to handle studies in the Academy. So let's go ahead and walk through this page together. I'd like to give you an overview of how the information is arranged, and then I encourage you to take time to read through it and just become as familiar as possible with the content on this page. And again, this page is available through the Selecting Courses link on the top of the Academy website. Now, as this page begins, there's a brief overview, and I'd like to just read through this first paragraph because this really presents the complex mission that we're working to fulfill in the Academy. It reads, "In the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we seek a true classical Catholic education while simultaneously satisfying the requirements of modern education laws. Some programs will talk about modern education, some programs will talk about classical education. Most of them are not even talking about true classical education, just another form of modern education. But in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, what's really unique about our program is that we pursue both. We pursue a true classical Catholic education, the education enjoyed by saints and wise men throughout history, but we also recognize the responsibility that we have to satisfy modern education requirements. And the question is, how can you do both? How can you do both? The solution to that question is what I think is unique about the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and this solution is explained on this page. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start walking through the information on this page. The next section you'll see is costs of study, and that's just an overview of the enrollment options as far as financial questions are concerned. And I'm not going to talk about that as we go through this page because I think that that's simple enough for you to follow. Just note that there are explanations of the paid plans that are available, and then down here there's an explanation of a number of free options for enrollment for different groups. So paid options and free options. There's a note on services that are available, and then lastly, to enroll, just follow the instructions on the Academy Study Center with a link to the Study Center. So everything you need to know about enrolling as far as subscription or payments are concerned is explained in that paragraph there. But now we get into the real stuff of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy and what really sets us apart from all other Catholic study programs, whether private school or homeschool. This image here is a very important one that I recommend you study a bit and then keep in mind. You'll see that the top half of this image is red and the bottom half is blue. And this shows how we're seeking to accomplish two different things in our studies. The red represents classical Catholic studies, and you can see the subject areas of classical Catholic studies listed here. So the red represents classical Catholic studies, and then the blue represents modern grade level studies from grade 1 up through grade 12. And you can see the 5 modern subject areas listed here. What's unique about the Classical Liberal Arts Academy is we don't try to mix these. We don't pretend we're doing something classical when really all we're doing is grade level studies. We keep these two things separate. And a good way to think about this is to think about what our Lord says when he says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. That would be these modern K-12 studies. And give to God what is God's. That would be these classical Catholic studies. So the only way that we can really fulfill the mission of Catholic education in the modern world is to work to satisfy both the requirements of classical Catholic studies and the requirements of modern grade level studies. So in this image here, you have a representation of that mission. And notice that the modern grade level studies are broken up into 12 grade levels, but classical Catholic studies don't care about these modern grade levels. Classical Catholic studies are focused on these subjects, and there's a real ancient curriculum or course of study that we pursue, and it has nothing to do with grade levels or ages even. So keep this image in mind to help you understand what we're doing as we lay out these studies in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. So with that in mind as a general representation of our mission, now let's look at how this breaks down into actual grade levels and different periods or phases of study in the Academy. Now, what you'll see is that there are divisions based on 3 divisions of study. And I just want to say up front that if you've looked around and you've heard about the 3 stages of learning associated with what I call the fake classical education movement, we're going to break studies into 3 periods of study, but it has nothing to do with any such thing as Dorothy Sayers' 3 stages of learning. It just happens to be 3 stages because of different goals for these 3 different levels of study, and I'm going to explain that. But don't confuse this with any talk about the grammar stage and the logic stage and the rhetoric stage. That's really a bunch of baloney that has nothing to do with grammar, logic, and rhetoric. These are just 3 different divisions of studies as our children move through 3 different phases and have 3 different sets of goals for these different periods of their education. And we'll talk about that a bit as we go. So to see the 3 divisions, look for these 3 headings that are inside the gray boxes. So the first division we see is the elementary division, and these are generalizations. So don't stress about the details of these divisions. These are just generalizations. The elementary phase of their studies is basically from ages 7 through 11, or grades 1 through 5, to use modern grade levels as a reference point. So the first division of studies would be the elementary studies, and you'll see that in this gray box here. Now we're going to scroll down and find the second division, and you can see that here. The second division would be middle school studies. And again, generally speaking, we're talking about ages 11 through 14, grades 6 through 8 in the middle school phase of studies. And then lastly, we have the high school age. Ages 14 to 18 plus, grades 9 through 12. So 3 divisions of study that we focus on in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy: the elementary, the middle school, and the high school. Very simple, just like modern school divisions. And remember, these ages and grade levels, these are generalized. So you may have a child who moves ahead at an earlier age. You may have a child who moves more slowly and progresses at an older age. It doesn't matter. In homeschooling, we're really not concerned about talk about ages and grade levels. We're focused on helping our individual children make the best possible progress in real Catholic studies. All talk about ages and grade levels, that's all secondary to us in homeschooling. Whereas in schools, that's primary because the kids are organized into age-based groups. But in homeschooling, we really don't care about how old a child is or what other children his or her age are doing. We're concerned with the progress and development of our individual children, and they're all different. So these are generalizations. So you can see these three divisions of study: elementary, middle school, and high school. Now, if I scroll back up to the elementary level, you can see that this elementary level is divided into two parts, A and B. The first part focuses on classical Catholic studies. And again, the classical Catholic studies are visualized in this red part of this diagram. And the second division would be modern grade level studies, letter B here. So the elementary phase is divided into two different sets of studies, our classical Catholic studies and our modern grade level studies. And again, this is just the working out of this diagram, the red classical Catholic studies and the blue modern grade level studies. The same two divisions, classical Catholic studies and modern grade level studies, will be seen down in the middle school section. And just bear with me as I scroll here. But as we get to the middle school section, we'll see Division A, Classical Catholic Studies, Division B, Modern Grade Level Studies. And then if we go down to the high school level, we'll see A, Classical Catholic Studies, and B, Modern Grade Level Studies. So there are three divisions of the program in terms of the children's development by age and grade level. And each of these three periods of learning is divided into two different kinds of study, classical Catholic studies and modern grade level studies. And that's true for each of the three divisions of their studies, elementary, middle school, and high school. So that helps you to have a good overview of the information that's available on this page. Now let's take a walk through it, just so you can become familiar and I can make sure you see what we've got listed on this page here. So if we go all the way back up to the elementary division, and we see this division between classical Catholic studies and modern grade level studies, we see here the divisions of classical Catholic studies: trivium, quadrivium, philosophy, theology, and humanities. The trivium refers to language arts, grammar, reasoning, and rhetoric. The quadrivium refers to the classical mathematical arts, and you'll see that at the elementary age, we really don't do anything that relates to the quadrivium. That comes later in the curriculum. We then have philosophy, theology, and humanities. Humanities deals with history, literature, and so on. So those are the 5 subject areas of classical Catholic studies, and for children ages 7 through 11, or elementary age students, we have a list of courses that they can get started with. Latin Reading 1, Aesop's Fables, Catholic Bible 1, Baltimore Catechism 1, and World Chronology. So those would be the classical Catholic studies for children ages 7 through 11. That's where the little guys get started in the academy. Now, as far as grade level studies go, we're dealing with some different grade levels, and these are modern studies in modern grade levels. So you can see here we've got courses listed for kindergarten students, courses listed for grade 1 students, courses listed for grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. So you can see that everything is broken down into the grade levels. And you can see there's 2 basic divisions under each grade level, English and mathematics. So you've got grade level course recommendations for these different ages. Now remember, in the academy, you can enroll your children in any courses you want, but these are the recommended courses that we intend and expect children to be working on at these ages. Again, as a parent, you have freedom to change things as you please, but this is what we recommend. So there's no use writing to us or calling us and asking, what should my children enroll in? What should I choose for my children to study? This is the answer to that question. And if you do write to us and ask us questions about enrollment and course selection, we're simply going to direct you to this page. So everything is here. You just need to go through it, use this as a general guide for our recommendations, and then as you get some experience in the program, you can make adjustments at any time. So there's nothing to stress about, nothing to worry about. It's going to take some time, but you'll see it's really not complicated, and you'll get more experience as you go. So for kindergarten, you can see 3 petty school courses. There's an English reading course, an English literature course, and handwriting. Just basic stuff for kindergarten level studies. Now, I said that the 3 divisions of the curriculum have different goals. At the elementary level, our goal is to train our young children to become independent students by the time they reach age 12 or 13. We want them to just get used to studying. We want them to get used to their default study schedule. We want them to learn how to use the system, to be very comfortable working in the academy, getting support when they need it. Our goal is really not academic during the elementary phase of their studies. Our goal is really to develop independent students so that when they come to age 12 and 13, they can really start to dig in and work on their own. Because what's going to happen in the academy is when the children get working, they're going to pull away from studies that mom and dad can help with, and they're going to have to get into studies that they work through independently. That's one of the goals in education, is to give our children a better education than we received. And children in the academy are going to quickly get into studies that are beyond anything that their parents have studied. And so during these elementary years, the goal is not to get preoccupied with academic content and things like that, but to ask ourselves, are our children learning to study independently so that by the time they're 12 and 13 years old, they can really dig in and start making progress without being dependent on their parents. So that's the goal of this elementary phase. And again, you can see classical Catholic studies for that phase and modern grade level studies, all laid out with the recommended courses, and these are links to these courses in the study center. So tons of information here on this page that you can take your time and go through. But I think once you get an idea of what we're actually presenting on this page, it's pretty simple to follow. So let's go down to the middle school years. In this second phase of the children's studies in the middle school years, the goal, as I said, is to begin working independently, but even more importantly, to get prepared for 4 years of high school studies. These middle school years are very important because it's a transitional time. Children transition from being elementary students who are usually dependent on parents, learning how to study, and so on, to becoming high school students who are actually putting together their 4-year high school transcript, which is going to be what they take with them when they move on beyond their studies into college admission or career preparation, whatever course or path they choose as they get into young adulthood. The 4 years of high school is where they put together their high school transcript, and these middle school years are the years where we need to help them get ready for those 4 years. So the first phase, elementary level, we're trying to help the children become independent students. During this middle school phase, we're trying to get them in the best possible position for 4 years of high school studies. That's the goal. of the middle school phase. Again, you can see it broken down into classical Catholic studies and modern grade level studies. So it's divided just like the elementary phase. You'll notice, though, that the course recommendations are a bit more challenging. Latin reading, Latin grammar, Aesop's fables, Theophrastus's characters, Pliny's natural history in philosophy, daily scripture reading, Baltimore Catechism 2 in theology, world chronology for humanities. Those are the classical Catholic studies. Then we get into grade level studies, and we have grade 6, English and math, grade 7, English and math, grade 8, English and math, and then we're into the high school years. So those are the middle school years, with the goal being to get the kids in the best possible position for success in their 4 years of high school studies. When we move into the high school phase, this is really where our children make the most progress in their studies, and that's true both for classical Catholic studies and for modern grade level studies. And they're under some pressure here because these 4 years are the 4 years that are recorded on their transcripts and go with them to the next phase of their careers, whether in continued studies or in professional pursuits. So these 4 years of high school, the goal is simply to accomplish as much study as possible, to complete the most challenging course of studies available to the children. And in order to do that, they've got to have discipline established. They've got to have study methods established. They've got to have all of the resources that they need to focus on studies and as few distractions as possible. That's the challenge of the high school years. And if we get kids into good position heading into this third phase of their study and help and support them for 4 years, they're going to accomplish amazing things in the academy. And so that's how the 3 phases of their studies divide. And we can look now at the high school studies. So for classical Catholic studies, you see here ages 14 and up. You can see that the classical Catholic list of courses gets pretty intense, and it can go beyond these studies. This is just a recommendation for where we would hope students would be getting started in high school studies. Latin reading 1, Latin grammar 1, classical reasoning 1, classical arithmetic getting into quadrivium studies, classical geometry, classical ethics getting into real philosophy studies. And then in theology, moving from general information about the Bible and Catholic Bible and the Catechism and the Baltimore Catechism, but really getting more into the discipline of the Catholic life, learning to pray the Liturgy of the Hours, studying the Summa Theologica, and really digging in to sacred scripture. This is the classical Catholic study program for high school age children. And again, this is just the beginning, where we hope to see the kids begin by the time they're 14 or 15 years old. As for the modern grade level studies, again, this gets much more serious because we're working on their transcript studies, which divide into 5 subject areas: English, foreign language, mathematics, science, and social studies. And you can see that all of this is provided for in the academy. So when we say we're a classical Catholic study program and we also satisfy all modern grade level requirements, we're not joking around about that. We really do provide for both to be accomplished. You see the courses here, some of them overlap. For example, the Latin reading and grammar courses that we've been working on in the Trivium satisfy the high school foreign language requirements. So we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone through our Latin studies. And you can see that for freshman Latin, for freshman foreign language, we simply cover lessons 1 through 16 in the Latin reading 1 course and lessons 1 to 34 in the Latin grammar 1 course. Now, this Latin reading course has been recommended to the students since they were in elementary level. They could already have these 16 lessons completed before their high school age. And if that's true, They've got a head start on their high school studies. The same is true in these other areas. There's no reason students can't start English composition while they're in middle school. So the kids in the program can get a head start on high school studies, and it's recommended for them to do so, as long as they can handle the work. But in addition to the classical Catholic studies for the high school years, we see here the 9th grade recommended modern studies, 10th grade recommended modern studies, 11th grade studies, and 12th grade studies. So everything that's needed for both classical Catholic studies and modern grade level studies is provided in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and how you can manage that as parents is explained on this one page. So it's a very complex mission, at least on our side, in figuring out how to do both of these things and lay out all of these courses for the children. But as a parent, if you understand the general overview of what we're doing and just zero in and focus on what you need to do this year, this month, this week, today, you can have a very simple time because you can understand the big picture and be able to focus on the present. And that's what I'd like you to be able to do as parents. I'd like you to help your children focus just on today's tasks. Like Jesus teaches us, take no thought for tomorrow. Teach your children that way of living. Understand the plan, understand the mission, but focus on today's tasks and just get as much done as possible each day. So that's an overview of the whole program. I think that will be helpful in showing you how everything is laid out. Once you get past that curriculum layout, there's a number of different topics that I've included at the bottom of this page just to help you understand the planning and how to manage these studies. You can see here's a section on transcripts and references, and there's a link here to a sample transcript that could be used from the Academy. I'll open that up real quick. You can see what a transcript would look like. Here are your grade level studies. Here are your classical and Catholic studies, all included together on one transcript. Pretty easy to follow. Now, I can tell you just from my own experience as a homeschooling father that transcript that I just showed you has been accepted by colleges, by religious communities, by the U.S. military. It's considered a great transcript. And so there's really nothing to worry about with respect to the transcript as a homeschool family. There's nothing to worry about with homeschooling, modern colleges, the military, professional fields. They're all used to dealing with homeschool students at this point. Homeschooling is not new as it was 20 or 30 years ago. So there's really nothing to worry about. The most important thing is that you have a plan as a homeschooling family, and then you just focus on executing that plan by getting as much done as you can day by day. And that's my goal for your family. So I hope that's a helpful overview of this page where all of the information on course selection is provided in the Academy. I'm just going to scroll back up to the top here. And again, to get to this page, simply use this Selecting Courses link up at the top. And I recommend you go through this page, read it carefully, make sure you understand all the details of it. If you have any questions, send those questions to me. I'm happy to help you work out all of the final details or tie up any loose ends that you don't feel comfortable with. And then use this as your reference point for your long-term plan. If anyone were to ask you about your curriculum or what your study plan is for your children, this would be your source. So the more comfortable you get with the information on this page, I think the easier you'll be able to commit and work through classical, Catholic, and modern studies in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. The last thing I'd like to show you just before we wrap up with this video is there's a printable version of this page that if you'd like a printable copy, I've formatted that for printing so you can click on that link, open up a PDF version of this information, and print that. Now, I focus all of my attention in communicating our curriculum on this page. So from time to time, I may tweak things, I may update things. If there's anything that I update that's significant, I'll make sure that a notice goes out to the community. But I've been working on this for over 20 years now, and I'm quite confident that the information provided on this page is very stable and is not going to change in any significant way. So I think that I can tell parents that you can really dig in and commit to pursuing this course of studies, following this pattern that I've explained. And if there are going to be changes, they're going to be minor. There's nothing about this that's going to change in any major way. And this is what we're presenting to Cognia for accreditation this year. So I'll also keep you posted on the status of our accreditation process, which we hope to have finished up by the end of the year in 2024. So that's an overview of how our curriculum works, how the courses are to be planned for and arranged and worked through. All of that information you need on selecting courses and managing studies is available here in this one place on this course of studies page, which again you can reach with this selecting courses link. If there's anything else that you'd like explained, if this leads to any new questions that you have, just get in touch. I'm happy to help you get every question answered and make sure you've got all the details worked out so that you can just focus with your children on day-to-day studies, which is the way to make the most progress over time in real classical Catholic studies. I hope that's helpful. God bless.